FM, your daily guide to the markets, money, and more.
Welcome back. This is the Midday Majlis on Mira Business FM. We're now about to explore how artificial intelligence is transforming the way businesses make decisions, manage talent, and create real impact. And we'll be discussing this with Carolin Baumgartner, an AI strategy consultant, founder, and former program manager who has worked across Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. She helps organizations and leaders make sense of AI in a practical, human-centered way, focusing on clarity, better decisions, and real-world impact. Welcome to Midday Majlis, Carolin. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Carolin, I would like to ask you that how do you describe what you do for business leaders feeling overwhelmed by AI?
I think it's not just business leaders. I think everyone is overwhelmed at the moment. I think it's an exciting era because no one actually knows what they're doing. I think the most important is to start small. I help businesses to start small, to find the problems that require solving, where they actually get an ROI out of it and not just follow a trend at the moment. Because what you actually see at the moment is that people are going on LinkedIn, we're speaking about trends, we're picking up trends, and constantly you feel like you have this fear of missing out.
There's just a lot of technology hype with
Yes.
regards to this.
Exactly, and I think it kind of creates a fear of missing out, and I think we have that with every trend, right, when we look back in history. And this fear of missing out hype is kind of forcing people and going into just adopting instead of thinking first. And I think what comes with AI is that what is really critical is to think about what you're actually doing and what actually makes sense for you, and not just following a trend and adapting tools and wasting money. That's why usually 70 to 80% of the AI projects fail that we see, right?
Interesting. And what is the biggest misconception about AI in business today?
That's a good question. I think that's a very important one, is that we think that AI is a tool, which it's not. It's a capability. So you want to use AI as an intelligence in your business. We are using it as a tool, we are rolling it out as a tool, and that's why it fails. AI feeds from your data, right? It's an intelligence model. That means it needs to be fed with something. And what it will use is the data of your company. So when you want to run your business, what do you need? You need your data. You need to have clean data. All the things that people don't want to do is the data management, the data cleansing, right? It's usually everything that we ignored in the past with the rollout of applications. You could hide that to a certain degree. With AI, that's not possible anymore. And I think because we use data as a tool in businesses, in our daily lives, without looking at what we are feeding into it, this is why it fails. And then we're saying, okay, it's not working. We have failed business cases. We're wasting money, and we don't have a return on investments as we thought we would. So what AI projects are actually about is data owning, data
And also
cleansing.
amplifying the human decisions.
100%, because with the time that we're in, I think what AI will do, and that is me just saying it, is AI will make us more human again. Because at the end of the day now, we will see that the human skills will make a big difference in how jobs are going to be shaped in the future.
And there is also a misconception about how AI can replace the human judgment entirely. What do you have to say about that?
I think it can be seen as both, right? A threat and opportunity, and that's always the case. It's a threat to tasks, right? Which is not necessarily a bad thing, right?
Right.
I think when we look back, it's always a perspective, right? You can look at the glass half full and half empty. For us, it feels like a threat because it comes after things that we used to do that's in our comfort zone, right? And executing our jobs and repetitive tasks. And this is exactly where AI is a threat, is for repetitive tasks, which was created, for example, when we go back in history, in the Industrial Revolution, right? These kind of repetitive tasks were not part of our daily jobs. That was created during that time, and how we went on in the past 50 to 60 years. Now it's actually the opposite. Now these kind of jobs are going to be taken away by technology, so it forces us out of the comfort zone, but it creates also new jobs, right? New jobs where we actually go from execution to ownership. And I think that is the shift that people are really uncomfortable with, and they don't understand yet what is expected of me in the future. And it's scary, I understand that.
It is. And a clear AI strategy actually, I think, aligns technology with the exact business goals, not
Yeah.
just the experimentation, as you've said.
100%, I think, with everything in life, right? You clear you are where you're heading and what your goals are, the better your execution will be. And I think AI is challenging that now. I think we were running
Very.
businesses. We saw that everywhere. I think that's where people get demotivated also as employers. We see this as employees, is where do we get demotivated when we don't see a strategy. We don't understand the strategy of the company. We don't see the goal setting. We don't understand what we're feeding into. And that's the
And we're also
problem.
rushing a little too much into that, right? So,
100%.
rushing or risks of rushing into AI without understanding the problems or the actual need of it is one of the things that I would like you to highlight a bit
Yeah, I
more.
think we're rushing extremely into execution, where AI requires first to understand your goals and your problems and to create a framework around it. Because also the just execution of AI is a risk, right? Because you need to think about governance, about security. And we see now with the trends, it's a huge problem, right? I think now there was a new trend right now, a new tool, I think Claude something, for your personal assistant that everyone was talking about. But it's a huge risk, right? Because we don't think about security. And if you integrate it into your applications, you need to think about how much you approve it to have access to your data. And I think this is what the trend is creating is a focus on execution instead of looking at what problems am I actually trying to solve and what is the outcome at the end of the day, right? And that is what people are skipping. And I think every business that has a clear strategy, a clear vision where they're heading, can execute better, especially with AI. And we see that Dubai is the best example, right? If you have a vision, you know what you want to build, you can all of a sudden build a city in 60 years. Where when you go to Europe, other places, nothing has changed in 60 years.
Sure.
And I think this is what people need to learn to take a step back now. It's like we're not rolling out a tool, we're rolling out a capability. It's like integrating a new team member. If you integrate a new team member into your department, what do you do first? You make sure they understand the job. You make sure you understand the problems that they're supposed to solve for you. And you make sure that they understand the strategy of the company and the department. And that's the same with AI. And that's how we need to treat it, right? And then you make sure, it's like with a child, right? You make sure that you're feeding it the right information to grow. And it's the same with AI. You need to make sure your data is the correct one. You clean up your data. You have data owners and governments. So it's a whole framework that is required to make it successful. And I think there we go too big too soon, and we should rather start with smaller problems.
Right. And where do you see AI delivering the practical value beyond hype?
I think especially in operations, I think we always want to have the fancy use cases that we can brag about, right? We're like, okay, we need to be known in the market for this very specific solution, and we have solved it first. But I think
That's not the case.
no, I think the biggest value comes out of who is reasonable in the execution, and they will win because you need to fix your operational problems first, right? Before you go into fancy, you always start with the basis. That's your operations. You have probably a lot of processes within your operations that are killing a lot of time for your teams, especially, for example, in IT, right? That where I can help you to identify patterns where your team is wasting a lot of time, risks, especially, right? Something that we as humans might not pick up in the moment because it requires more of a complex analysis.
And personalized customer experiences as
For
well.
example, also, yeah, customer, well, I mean, you'd probably need always a combination. I'm a big fan of combining AI and human, especially right now where we are not at the AGI stage, which is the artificial general intelligence. We are not there yet, right? It's basically AI operating like a human. It should assist humans at the moment to be smarter, and we're moving more into decision making and ownership instead of execution, and use AI as a helper. And so with customers, that's one example. We all have this really bad examples right now and frustrations where we just talk to AI and it's basically just automation. And I think there is also a big understanding gap of what is the difference between these technologies, right? What is the difference between me using narrow AI and automation and generative AI and agentic AI? What are AI agents? There's so many different ways of execution where you first need to understand your problem and you're not just throwing AI at everything because it sounds good. It can waste a lot of money
Yeah,
for you.
because usually I do see it sounding very good. It
Yeah.
always tells us what we want to hear, doesn't it?
Of course,
At
I mean, I
times.
built an AI startup. It sounds great because because investors want to hear, or people want to hear that you have the newest technology, you're looking at the latest trends. It doesn't mean that every problem requires AI. You will have problems that will require a human, especially if we talk about empathy, right? Judgment, context. We cannot use AI for that. AI is supposed to be there to identify patterns, right? To help you with prediction models. This is something where it can save you a lot of time and identify patterns that we as humans were not able to identify. But yeah, I think we are just sometimes trying to sound cool and jump on a trend to satisfy investors, to satisfy our customers. But I think there's a lot of teaching that needs to be done in terms of like automation is enough. Like even some of the chat boxes that you see is automated. It's basically just a rule.
They always are.
Most of the
Mostly.
time.
Yeah, most
Most of the time. I think not a lot of I don't know. I've not seen very good AI chat boxes for people to help you with an actual problem. Just a few that were trained very, very well, where the companies really, really cared about the customer experience. Everything else was more or less, okay, let's just get rid of people. But I think this is where companies are also too fast, right? If you want to get rid, let's say, of customer service people, which I understand to a certain degree, you need to make sure that whatever you place it with brings quality to your customers, right? And I think there we're jumping the gun right now, where we think we are there, but we are not, and it requires effort, and people just don't like effort, right? Or getting out of the comfort zone.
True. And then when it comes to AI and the future of work, let's talk about how is AI changing the talent acquisition?
I think it will change a lot. I think talent acquisition, in my opinion, will require always, if we hire humans and not robots, always require an approach of a technology plus human. That's what I was working on. For me, it was very important when we built the startup that we use the technology to be able to help people working in talent acquisition to take better decisions, but remove the repetitive tasks, help them identify patterns. Let's say when we go, for example, into reading CVs, and I hope we will go away from CVs one day. I'm not a big fan of CVs, but that's how we work at the moment, is to identify not just keywords, because I think what people are afraid of at the moment and what we're seeing right now is that a lot of systems are focusing on keywords. Okay, if we cannot find that certain keyword in the CV,
It's not worth it to look at it.
exactly, you will be
Which
not
is
considered.
very much of a wrong approach, I would say.
It is, and I think this is where then I call it narrow eye for the specific case can actually look at patterns. I mean, if just because you didn't mention a certain word, and that was in our case, we had an algorithm where I helped us. Okay, maybe they didn't say stakeholder management, but because of certain repetitions of saying, okay, I've worked with different people, I manage different teams, I was speaking to C-level, reporting here, that was stakeholder management, right? So just because I didn't use the word didn't mean we would rule it out. It meant for us, okay, they have stakeholder management experience. And I think this is where we're going to go. But I think for talent acquisition, we will definitely go away from just kind of a keyword matching into trying to understand the person. And I think this is where I will help a lot in the future, because as a person, you just have a limited capacity, right, to go through a certain amount of CVs. And it sounds unfair. I've been a hiring manager, but it is frustrating because you will stop at some point being able to assess a CV. You will not have the focus to go through 600 CVs. So we need to start building systems that are able to go through it and still be fair. And I think this is where then the human judgment comes in, right?
So the human judgment always remains essential.
100% you will need, because AI, at the moment where we are, I don't know where we're going to be in 100 years, but AI right now cannot be ethical. It cannot own something. It cannot own decisions. It cannot have the accountability. It's there to help you and to be a capability. But as humans, we need to create ownership. And I think this is where a lot of the training for people need to go into is like, what will the jobs look like in the future? So a lot of the jobs in white collar will look like, okay, who is the owner of this of the output of AI, right? In certain departments, who's owning it, who's governing it, the security of the data, what data are we feeding it into? Are we training it? Are we removing bias? Are we trying? I mean, there will always be a certain amount of bias, but are we working on removing the bias? We see it already, the discussions are starting, right? Between is the AI models that we are looking in at the moment too westernized, right? So when I want to have certain answers, will it reflect the culture, for example, of the Middle East, of Asia, which we're already debating, right? Because the model was trained, or considering women and all kind of different topics in terms of like bias. So I think there's a lot to do, and a lot of jobs will go into that. And I think leaders and businesses need to think about that.
And a lot has to be remodeled as well.
A lot, 100%, right? And then again, we go back to data. So everything goes back to data, because in order to make sure we remove the bias, which you will probably never do to 100% because it's a system, you need to have the data to feed it in. So also in the countries that would like the UAE or Asia or whatsoever, we need to think about, do we have the data available that we can feed these models to this degree as we do it, for example, in Europe or in the US, right? Because the data there is available through history. Do we have this data available so we can feed it? And I think this is where, as I saw it myself, right? We don't want to touch data. No one wants to be responsible for data. But I think a lot of jobs also will go towards that, and it's like kind of the ownership of the data and cleansing and making sure we actually have good data to feed the model. The better the data and the better the training, the better your output.
Great, and that will only improve the candidate's experience and, of course, the customer experience as well.
Yes, 100%. And I think it's normal that if there's something new, we're afraid of it, right? But I think if we are able, and that the times will change, right? And the change will come faster and faster and faster. So I think if we're able to create that resilience to overcome fear and be like, okay, instead of ignoring the problem, I'm going to face it. And I'm just going to see, okay, what is AI bringing? What skills do I need to learn step by step, something every day, read something about it. You will be ahead of everyone else. And this is how you secure jobs, because people see you're motivated to bring and help the company and the businesses to bring them to the next level. You can bring suggestions to the leadership, right? It's about the small steps. It's not about you need to know it all at the very beginning, because no one has figured it out right now, right?
Right, and it will take some time.
100%.
For sure. And how do you see professionals taking this? How do you see them? Do you think that they're seeing it as a threat or a tool?
I think you always have two extremes, right? It's one or the other. There are some leaders there that love innovation, and they are always up for a new challenge.
Yeah.
And then there's the other extreme, which is basically the fear of jobs. And I think right now what happens in Dubai is we have so many people that move here, and we have just such a high influx of people, but not enough jobs. And I think this is where leaders need to come in and create trust for people to say, okay, how can we deal with AI without people being in a fear or living in fear of losing their job, because that kills innovation.
It does.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's a really fine balance is, how do we make sure that whatever's happening right now, and the trend is not having enough jobs, but too many people in the country, and still pushing innovation and removing that fear of AI, because that's an emotional problem. That's not a rational problem for AI. An emotional problem of AI is stopping a lot of progress. Right? And I think this is something that we are not tackling enough.
So there is equal amount of positives and of the negatives, or you see more negatives?
100%. I hope that, I mean, I think there is the amazing thing about the UAE is that they have always a vision. Right now we have the 2031 strategy for AI, where we want to be one of the global leaders for AI. And I think there's a $200 billion investment into infrastructure and talent development. And I think talent development is the key, because you need to make sure that you have the talent also in the AI space to be able to be the leader in this space, right? I think we already have a lack of AI engineers and people who are able to bring you to the next level, right? But also in how do you reskill people? How do you make people aware? And I think awareness is a big thing, right? People are lost. And I think this is where the UAE is quite fast in changing and adopting to not just the trend, but to integrate it into society, right?
Yeah.
I think that is where a lot of societies are failing, is removing that fear, implementing it, and rolling it out. And I think the UAE is quite good at it. I think we need to be better in taking a risk if it comes to startup investment in the AI space in order to, for example, compete with Silicon Valley. So I hope we are getting better there. There's a huge gap, but
And there is a lot of competition as well.
In the startup space?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it always be, and that's good, right? Because we are all starting, we're telling people to try something, so you always will have a high competition on that level, right?
For sure.
And you need to try, and there's a risk, right, on early startups. But you need to take a chance, right? Because it's all about execution. So if you have the resources to execute on it, we can build great things, and then maybe we will see more great companies and startups coming actually from this region and not just from Silicon Valley.
And what opportunities for UAE businesses do you think will lead in AI?
Which industries? I think in the UAE, definitely, I think health tech is a big one. We see a huge trend, right? Fintech is also the one, energy. I think these are definitely areas where you see right now a lot of startups popping up left and right. I think one important one is definitely also talent acquisition, because that will change. I don't see it. I mean, there's a big trend globally in HR tech. We can see a lot of startups are going into that space. But I think what I would like to see more is not just tech innovation. I think when we talk about innovation, we always think technology, right, is the solution. But we also need to think now about how we are doing things differently and then use the tech to build that. Technology is not always the innovative part. And I think that's where a lot of startups get lost, is we just automate. And I see that a lot now. We just automate something, but if you don't fix the root cause, you're just making a problem faster. And that's exactly one, for example, in talent acquisition, right?
Right.
We're starting to automate everything, we bring AI, but if your data is bad, we always say, like, you can drive a Porsche, but if you put water in, it will not go anywhere, and then you will start, and you continue blaming the car. And that is the same with AI, right? And I feel like I would love to see people more challenging how we are doing things. It's not just the technology, but the processes that we're dealing with. Are we doing it the right way, or have we just become comfortable?
All right. And then low-risk starting point for SMEs adopting AI. What do you have to say about that?
Definitely operations. Start with your IT, right? I mean, raising tickets, we all know, like, when I've worked in a business, and raising a ticket as a user, the time that you had to wait, right, in the past to get help with your laptop, any kind of IT issues, this is where you can save a lot of time, because you can actually see with AI how long has it been in the queue, so do we need to improve the waiting time for the customer meaning the employee who has the issue, right? Are there patterns of certain issues that pop up over and over again? Maybe we are wasting time on fixing the same issue over and over again, and we just need to start actually fixing the root cause and not having a million tickets for that root cause. And I think this is where people don't have time to look into.
Right.
So with that
analysis, so addressing those specific business pain points is what comes into work.
Especially if it comes to patterns, everywhere where you have patterns that need to be recognized, where you feel like my people are wasting a lot of time into either repeating a process over and over again, where you can, for example, use automation, or where you see there are more complex patterns in the analysis. AI is amazing for that, right? And it can highlight actually root causes that you can use to give your team to fix the root cause, and actually you reduce time and problems. It's just about the 1% rule, right? You want to improve 1% here. If you start listening to your departments, there are a million use cases in your daily operations where you can use AI, or just automation. For example, start with automation, right, to improve your business.
Well, Carolin, this discussion of ours is going very interesting, I must say. And we'll continue talking to you more about the women in leadership and decision making as well when it comes to AI, right after a short break. Welcome back. This is Midday Mujlis on Mira Business FM, and we are in conversation with Carolin Baumgartner, an AI strategy consultant. Carolyn, let's continue our talk. So,
Yes.
how can leaders decide if a solution should be human, tech driven, or AI powered?
I think coming back to what we said before, I think the moment you require human judgment, especially around decision making, right, ethical, anything that comes into ethical questions, because AI can give you an output, but at the end of the day, the ownership for decision making is still with the human, right? But the moment you see that we talk about pure execution, right, and we see there's a repetitive task that needs to be done over and over again, it doesn't really require a human brain to interfere. That's usually where we're wasting time, right? This is where we can execute and go, for example, into automation, right? And then if we think about, let's say, for example, heavy, heavy patterns, complex patterns, prediction models, etc., 100%. You can use AI, obviously, to look at your patterns, look at your historical data, and give you the output. I think the very, very important part is, and I think this is the problem that we're seeing right now, is people are abusing AI for decision making because we don't like the accountability and the responsibility of decisions. That's why we hire people. That's why we hire consultants, right?
Yeah,
We have
and
someone to
also,
blame.
exactly. And I think over here also, the leaders should weigh the complexity and the risk when it comes to this.
100%, and you need to make sure that you have the governance in place. And there are tools out there, right? But depending on the size of your business, probably a startup won't need that. You will not need the governance at that level, depending on who you're selling to. If it's B2B or to enterprise, probably that requires certain governance and security from you. But I think if it comes to enterprise, you have AI middleware that is there, like AWS Bedrock, for example, right? That helps you set up, giving you access to different AI models and tools, but also giving you the governance and the security that you can set up. You need to take decisions, and I think now we're still in a time where there's not we don't have many laws around AI. So it's about companies defining these rules for themselves, right? It's like, where do we want AI to execute and where does it stop? Do we as humans step in and we take the decision, we own it, who owns it, right? Who's owning the data, who's owning the outputs? Because it needs to be refined. Not everything that AI is saying is true. And we forget about that, I think, because we like the intelligence, but we don't like the loss of autonomy that comes with it. Right? So we
True.
want to be in control as humans, it's normal. We want to be in control, and we have the fear that comes with AI is like our loss of control. And this is where we need to define the rules around it. For every company, it can be something else around security, decision making, ownership. And I think this is where a lot of jobs will go into. Right?
And we need to avoid the over resilience as well.
100%, 100%. Like, we do know that AI is biased. We do know that, for example, if you talk to ChatGPT, to a certain degree, it learned what you want to hear, and it will start telling you what you want to hear.
Exactly.
I had discussions with AI where I was shocked. I was asking for certain explanations, and I had to challenge it a lot. I was creating an image to explain something in an easy way to my audience, and I knew 100% it was wrong, and it starts deflecting to a certain degree. And you have to actually call it out. And I had to call it out, and I said, "You're deflecting, you're trying to gaslight me right now." So we need to be careful.
And we need to maintain that critical thinking and empathy again.
Exactly, and this is where the human comes in, right? The
Exactly.
moment we need to challenge the model, we need to challenge the output it's giving us, right? And this is, again, it's just a capability. It's basically a brain you're training. See it as a child, right? Someone gives you basically, I produced the child for you. Now you go and use it. There are certain things that it already knows, like a toddler. It knows how to survive to a certain degree,
Yeah,
but everything else you need to train it, and it
exactly.
depends on how you feed it. Do you give it good nutrition, etc. And what do you teach the child, right? So later you will see how it will behave in society. And if we want AI to behave in a certain way, to reflect our society, we need to give it rules and say this is how we want our society to be in the future, so it actually works with humans and it's not a threat to humanity.
This is what we need to understand. For
Exactly.
Sure. Yeah. And being a female in the field of
Yes.
AI yourself, why is it important for women to be a part of the AI conversation now in this time and age?
I think, we need diversity. Everyone has their strengths and their weaknesses, and I think where men and women work really well together, especially in the AI space, men love to push boundaries, right, and love to push for the next level. I think as women, what we bring in is the ethical challenges, right? And we saw it now with Mira who was offered how much? I think $1 billion to go to OpenAI or to Meta, I think. She used to exactly. She
That's
used to be
big.
exactly. She used to work for OpenAI. Was offered $1 billion to work at Meta. She declined, and she's building her own ethical AI solutions. And I think this is something that's a role model, right? And I think this is where we need women because we have the nature of making sure that things are done right, right? We are the ones who can set the frameworks and challenge the output and challenge the tools that we are creating in the future to make sure is this serving our society? And I think that's just the female nature, right? And I think that's very, very important also for training of models for diversity, etc. If it comes to health tech, that we make sure that the data that we're feeding into these models are also considering the female body, etc. I think there are a lot of cases where women can bring in a lot of benefits.
Interesting. And so, women participation is definitely something that is going to shape the inclusive AI development, you think?
Yes, and also the safety around it. I think men are risk takers, right? They don't think the first thought is not, and I don't want to generalize, right? We always say exception make the rules, but it's the nature, and that's fine, right? That's why we're a team. We are challenging each other on different levels. Men are more risk taking, pushing boundaries. We are more like, okay, but is it the right thing to do? Just because we can do it, and I think that's everything. That question comes up everywhere in medicine, in technology, everywhere. Just because we can do it doesn't mean we have to do it.
Right.
Where do we stop, right?
So it's a good balance between the two.
Exactly, and I think this is where women need to be less afraid. It's like you don't need to be technical to deal with AI. You can help with decision-making frameworks. You can help with making sure that whatever we're doing in a society and the governments has kind of an ethical approach, right? So I think we need to be less afraid and say, okay, we're women, we cannot be, I cannot be in tech. I don't understand the code. I cannot deal with it. That's not
There is
required.
nothing that women can't do, really, right?
No, we're
So
just more
go for it.
curious. I think we're just more careful
Yeah, we are.
in our
Yeah.
natural approach.
True. I agree to that. And now, what is your advice for women leaders who feel not technical enough to engage with AI?
Doesn't matter. You don't need to be technical to be able to deal with AI, right? There's so many courses out there. Start small, right? Start with a small problem. Start reading about AI. There are great courses out there that teach you the basis of understanding. Start with understanding what are the different AI models out there, right? What is AI? What is the difference between automation and AI? Then you have narrow AI, right? You have generative AI like ChatGPT, etc. And then you have autonomous AI, etc. So I think just start learning the basics, right?
Start somewhere.
Start somewhere. It's with everything, and I think this is where you can already shine in the business and find small use cases. Experiment. Don't be shy. Right now, you don't need to spend a lot of money anymore. In the past, when we wanted to experiment with something, we needed to spend a lot of time and money into looking into innovation in the tech space. Now that's not
Very
required
limited
anymore.
resources.
You can test things with $20 these days. So the investment is not a risk anymore. So find problems within your team that you feel like are repetitive. Your team is wasting a lot of time. You would rather have them focus on something else. Start with that, right? And I think this is the key, is to start small, and then you lose the fear. It's with everything. At the beginning, it looks very big, and then you realize it's not.
Yeah,
that
and it then
frightening.
slowly becomes your cup of tea
Exactly.
without you realizing. And so, how have professional and personal transitions shaped your approach?
Oh, a lot. I think I have perfectionized transition over the years. I'm a very curious person. I've changed my career so many times.
Oh, really?
Yes, I
Okay.
mean, I used to plan press gallants for Porsche, an intern, then I moved over to consulting, business processes, then digital transformation, then I went into IT, then I did the startup, I did
You've
consulting.
done a
So,
lot.
yeah, and I think I always want to tell people, like, don't be afraid of changing, right? I mean, how do you know? I always say, how do you know you have one life? Be curious. I think in this time of change, curiosity can be your superpower because it is a time where you need to adapt.
To the change.
Yes, I think adaptability and curiosity can be your superpowers. Don't be afraid of changing. We are not anymore in a time where you have to have the perfect CV. It's important that you're able to adapt to change very, very quickly. You're able to learn skills very, very quickly and go with time. And I think that's where, for me, it creates a certain resilience, right? And I think that was just my journey.
And embracing the change actually also improves the leadership and the technology adoption as well, right? So,
Yeah, 100%. I think with every change, you're looking at new solutions, right? And I think people need to force themselves more to get out of their comfort zone. And you don't need to, I'm not saying tomorrow you need to change your entire career. I'm the extreme. I've lost the fear of
yeah,
that.
we don't want people to quit their jobs all of a
No,
sudden
don't do
and
that.
just step
Especially
into
if you're
something.
family, don't do
Yeah.
that. No, but you can change with things in your daily life. Try something new. Learn, like it can be a hobby. Learn something new. Try to train your
Explore.
brain
Yeah.
to learn new skills quite fast. Be curious, see what's out there. When we go to school, we are not being taught every single job on the planet. How would we know? How would we know? You will only figure that out by curiosity and going out there and trying things and see what am I good at, what are my superpowers, right? And where can I bring in my talent to make things better?
Well, thank you for actually shedding light on that. And now, tell us about a career moment that changed your view on tech's role.
I think it was not one moment. I think it was again a transition because I think a year ago, or no, 2 years ago, we I did not use the tools that I'm using today. And today it's normal. It's like you open your phone and you use AI. And I think that's when it hits you. It creeped in. It's more like it was a slow process, right? You're using AI for this task, then for this task, and all of a sudden so many things in your life are automated and it just became your best friend almost, right?
Yeah.
And I think that was
Hard
more the
to
wake
live
up.
without.
100%, because it also saves so much time, and I feel like how much time I spend on creating presentations, um, especially in consulting, right? I mean, people make fun of that, right? We're great at making PowerPoints. You don't need that anymore. And for a lot of people, that was a huge pain point, spending a lot of time sitting there in the evenings. Now you can do that in minutes, right? And I think it's incredible. There's a lot of opportunity.
Life has only become easier with AI around.
Also faster. I wouldn't say easier. It's just harder in a different way, right? It also brings speed
Mm.
to it, which is a challenge. Everything became faster, which is also not easy to comprehend by the human mind all the time.
And what separates companies that succeed with AI from those that struggle?
I think the companies that stop treating AI like a trend and just jump on everything because it sounds nice. And I think as humans, we do that everywhere. If it's
All
Instagram,
the time.
in life, in business, we're like, oh, we're using this tool and that tool. Okay, that's great, but tell me, what does it actually do for you? And what's your return on investment? Are you actually saving time? Are you able to remove cost centers? Are you able to turn it into a revenue center? What are you actually doing with it? What output are you expecting? What are you putting in? And I think the moment you ask these kind of questions, a lot of people don't even know how to answer it. So again, there's a lot of fear of missing out. There is a strategy in the country, but
The
not just
thoughtful
here.
strategy has to be in place.
Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of companies struggle, right? Is because they haven't had a strategy or a vision for quite some time. It was just let's operate, basically. It was an operating model, but no strategy. Now you need that because AI requires the goals to be able to execute the way you want to, and to able to create the use cases, and to make sure that your use cases are actually valuable. You need to have the goals in place, you need to have a strategy in place.
Right. And as you said, that the trends are not for everyone and anyone. So, what is that one AI trend you want businesses or business leaders that should be watching out?
Definitely AI agents, right? So when we look at it, you have obviously a lot of talk out there, but you can create your own AI agents to actually execute certain repetitive tasks, right? Start there because that's where it's going to go. You probably start with automating experimentation, and then you can actually create your own AI agents for your use case, train it according with your rules. You can set up your own company rules around that, but you need to be open to experimentation, right? And I think that's the most important part. But you can use your own rules. You can set the own rules for your company, and I think that's going to be very, very important.
Well, this is quite an informative conversation that we're having right here with you, Carolyn. Before we wrap up, one action for business leaders to take, what would it be?
Start small. I think review what you're doing right now. If you already have AI implemented and you feel like it's leading nowhere, go back to basics, right? Go back and see what are we actually trying to achieve. Do we have a proper strategy in place with our leadership, with our C-level? Where are we heading? Like, where is the ship going, right? And then make sure that are we having people that are taking care of our data? What are we feeding AI with? Because the models that you're buying are trained models, but they're not according to your use case, not according to your business, your industry, probably only to a certain degree. So you want to make sure that your data is clear. Start small, right? Start at the basic. And then start with small steps. Find one repetitive task in your department and try to automate it. That's the first
And be
step.
aware of the end goal.
Always.
Always.
If
Yeah.
you don't know where you're heading, AI cannot produce something for you if you don't know where you go, unless you go only for automation. But if you actually want to go into leveraging AI and AI capabilities, you need to know your goals and the context 100%.
Great advice. Thank you so much, Carolyn, for being able to join us today. It
Yeah,
was
thank you.
wonderful talking to you.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. That was Carolin Baumgartner sharing practical insights on how businesses can harness AI to make decisions better, empower their teams, and create real-world impact. It was a conversation full of clarity, strategy, and forward-looking ideas. And with that, we come to the end of today's Midday Majlis. I'll be back with more engaging conversations and interesting discussions. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Mira Business FM. This is me signing off. Bye-bye.
Mira Business FM, your daily guide to the markets, money, and more.